My name is Hannah Brooks. I'm 25 years old, and 3 days ago, my family believed they could take everything I had earned simply by calling it love. My mother cornered me in the kitchen and ordered me to give my entire $15,000 savings account to my sister for her wedding. When I refused, she pointed at the front door and told me to choose between the money and my place in the family. My father didn't defend me. He pushed a transfer form across the table and said, "Give your sister the $15,000. Don't be selfish." Minutes later, my sister texted me from upstairs, calling me a jealous loser who would never have a wedding worth celebrating. I read the message twice, looked at the three people waiting for me to break, and smiled. That smile disturbed them more than tears ever could. I packed one suitcase, took a folder from the locked drawer beneath my bed, and walked out without arguing. They thought I had surrendered. They assumed guilt would bring me crawling back before the weekend. Instead, I spent the next 72 hours discovering why they needed my money so badly and why my name appeared on financial documents I had never signed. On the third morning, I left a sealed envelope at their front door. By noon, the house was filled with screaming, crying, accusations, and the sound of my mother realizing that the daughter she had treated like an emergency fund had finally stopped protecting her. Before I tell you what was inside that envelope, and why opening it turned my family against one another, tell me what time it is where you are, and where you're watching from. I want to know how far Hannah's story has traveled tonight. 3 years earlier, I began working as a calibration technician at a medical device manufacturing plant in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I spent 10-hour shifts testing pressure sensors, measuring tiny tolerances, documenting failures, and ensuring that components used in prosthetic limbs performed exactly as designed. One incorrect reading could delay an entire production line, so precision mattered. I liked that machines followed rules. A measurement was either correct or it wasn't. A signature either belonged to you or it didn't. At the time, I had no idea how important that distinction would become. Saving $15,000 required discipline. I brought lunch from home, worked overnight recalibration runs, accepted weekend inventory shifts, and drove an aging car instead of replacing it. Every extra dollar went into a separate account at Red River Community Credit Union, a bank my parents didn't use. I had opened it after noticing that money in my childhood account disappeared whenever my older sister needed something. My goal was to complete a computer-aided design certification for prosthetic components. It could move me from equipment calibration into design support, raise my salary, and give me a career that belonged entirely to me. I had already received conditional acceptance, and the tuition deposit was due in 6 weeks. My family knew I was saving but didn't know the balance until a paper statement was delivered to the house instead of my rented mailbox. My mother opened it and claimed she thought it was a company invoice, although my full name was printed across the front. Our family business, Everlight Event Works, rented lighting, portable stages, dance floors, decorative arches, table settings, and floral installations for weddings and corporate events. My father had started it when I was 12. My mother handled contracts and accounting. My sister, Lauren Brooks, called herself the creative director, although employees did most of the actual design work after she changed her mind repeatedly. Lauren was charming, polished, and perfect in promotional videos. Customers loved her because she could make every bride feel important. Her own wedding had become Everlight's largest advertisement. She was marrying Caleb Vaughn, the son of a local commercial developer, and my parents believed an extravagant celebration would attract wealthy clients. They reserved a converted aircraft hangar, hired a 12-piece band, ordered suspended floral installations, rented vintage cars, and invited nearly 400 guests. Caleb's family offered to fund a rehearsal dinner and modest honeymoon, but refused to pay for a six-figure spectacle designed to promote my parents' business. Lauren had already announced the venue and date online, so reducing the wedding would mean admitting they couldn't afford what she had promised. That was why my mother, Denise Brooks, entered my room carrying my opened bank statement. "You have $15,312, she said, tapping the page. "That covers the floral balance." I stared at her. "Why did you open my mail?" She dismissed the question. "You live in our house. Nothing about your life is completely private." I reminded her that I paid rent, bought groceries, covered my bills, and had recently paid to repair the water heater. She said, "The wedding is in 5 weeks. Lauren needs the money now. You can save again later." I told her the money was for my certification. "The program will still exist next year," she answered. "Your sister only gets married once." That would have sounded more convincing if Lauren hadn't already been engaged twice. I said no. My mother's face changed from confidence to disbelief. Our family had trained me to confuse obedience with kindness. When Lauren wanted a reliable car for college, I received the one with the failing transmission. When she joined a summer design program, I surrendered a trip our grandmother had funded for me. When Everlight needed weekend labor, I worked unpaid while Lauren received a consulting allowance. Denise leaned over my desk. "Transfer the money by Friday or move out." I asked whether she was evicting me because I wouldn't pay for flowers. "This is about loyalty," she said. The next morning, my father, Gregory Brooks, called me into Everlight's warehouse office. He rarely yelled. He preferred disappointment because it left fewer visible marks. He pushed a bank transfer form toward me and said he wanted to avoid an unnecessary family rupture. "Give your sister the $15,000. Don't be selfish. This wedding affects all of us." I asked why they needed the entire amount. "Vendor balances." "Which vendors?" "Your mother handles the details." "Then show me the invoices." His expression tightened. "This interrogation is why your mother thinks you've become difficult." That afternoon, Lauren texted me 3 times. She said I was humiliating her, accused me of wanting her wedding to fail because no one had proposed to me, and finally wrote, "Keep acting like a loser. You'll still be alone while everyone celebrates me." I photographed every message and sent the images to a private email account. During my father's lecture, I had noticed a document partly hidden beneath the transfer form. Only one line was visible, but it contained my full legal name followed by the words, "Additional Guarantor." I wondered whether I had misread it. By that evening, I knew I hadn't. My younger brother, Ethan Brooks, was 21 and worked full-time in Everlight's warehouse. He managed equipment checkouts, repaired lighting units, and loaded trucks before events. Unlike Lauren, he didn't receive a glamorous title. He earned hourly wages and was expected to be grateful whenever our father allowed him to take an old company van home. Ethan and I understood each other, but fear had made us careful. Anything said in one room eventually reached our mother. She controlled information the same way she controlled money, selectively and with consequences. On Wednesday evening, I found Ethan repairing a stage lighting cable. I closed the workshop door and asked whether Everlight had taken out a new loan. His hands stopped moving. "Why are you asking?" "Dad had a document with my name on it." Ethan looked toward the door. "You should ask him." I did. He called me difficult. Ethan admitted there had been certified letters, delayed vendor payments, a late employee paycheck, and suppliers refusing deliveries without advance payment. My parents told employees the problems were caused by rapid expansion. Ethan had also overheard an argument about a line of credit. Our mother said they needed a clean guarantor with stable employment. Our father replied that I would never agree. Denise answered, "She doesn't have to understand every page." I asked why Ethan hadn't warned me. He said he hadn't known what the sentence meant and depended on Everlight for his income. Then he remembered something else. 3 weeks earlier, Denise had removed folders from the family's fireproof document box and copied several papers in the office. One folder had my name on it. That box contained birth certificates, social security records, tax forms, and copies of our identification. Years earlier, my mother insisted on keeping a photocopy of my driver's license for emergencies. Her emergency may have become a loan application. I didn't break into their office, search a locked laptop, or steal company records. I checked accounts legally belonging to me. I requested my credit reports from all three bureaus. The first report showed my student credit card, my car loan, and an account I had never opened. A $35,000 revolving business line issued 8 months earlier by Prairie National Bank. Everlight Event Works was listed as the borrower. Hannah Brooks was identified as a personal guarantor. The second report showed the same account and a recent inquiry from Frontier Equipment Finance. That inquiry had been made 11 days earlier, around the time my parents ordered additional staging equipment for Lauren's wedding. I froze. Then I called Prairie National. After verifying my identity, the representative transferred me to commercial lending. I explained that I had never applied for business credit or authorized anyone to use my name. The loan officer told me the guarantee had been submitted electronically with copies of my driver's license, social security card, employment verification, 2 recent pay stubs, and a signed personal financial statement. Those pay stubs had disappeared from a sealed envelope on my desk months earlier. She couldn't provide full business records over the phone, but she instructed me to visit a branch, complete a fraud affidavit, freeze my credit, and file an identity theft report. I asked whether the business was behind on payments. She paused and said, "I cannot discuss the borrower's status by phone." Her refusal told me enough. That night, I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus and saved every report. At dinner, my mother discussed linen colors as if nothing had happened. My father asked whether I had thought carefully about Friday. I said yes. Lauren smiled. "So you're transferring it?" I said I thought about it. My mother put down her fork. "Don't play games." I looked at my father. "Neither should you." His expression shifted. He knew I had found something. I realized my $15,000 wasn't intended to pay a florist. They needed it to cover a financial deadline before the lender examined Everlight more closely. My savings were not a gift in their minds. They were a patch over debt already tied to my identity. I could have confronted them immediately, but people who realize you possess only half the truth often destroy evidence, invent consent, and blame the easiest target. So I pretended to know less than I did. "I'll give you my final answer tomorrow," I said. My mother relaxed. My father didn't. Thursday morning, I visited Prairie National before work. I brought identification, credit reports, employment records, and samples of my real signature. A fraud specialist named Marissa Cole reviewed everything while I explained that I had never owned Everlight, never guaranteed its debts, and never signed a personal financial statement. She printed the signature page. From a distance, the signature resembled mine, but the letters leaned in the wrong direction. The application used an email address I didn't recognize, while the recovery phone number belonged to my mother. It listed me as a 12% owner of Everlight and reported my salary accurately. It also claimed I held $22,000 in liquid assets when my savings had been closer to $10,000 at the time. My parents had added the estimated value of my car and retirement account, presenting nearly everything I owned as available support for their debt. Marissa said the bank would open an internal investigation, suspend further draws, flag my guarantee as disputed, and preserve the application records. She advised me to report the identity theft to the police and Federal Trade Commission. I asked whether my parents would be arrested. She said she couldn't predict criminal decisions because that would depend on the evidence, lender, and law enforcement. I filed a police report that afternoon. The officer didn't promise dramatic arrests. He recorded dates, account numbers, documents, names, and my statement, then gave me a case number. Afterward, I met an identity theft attorney named Rachel Kim through a legal aid clinic. She told me not to threaten my family, access their accounts, remove records, or publish accusations before the investigation. Your strongest position is the truth documented in the correct order, she said. Don't weaken it because you want them to feel what you felt. I did want that. I wanted my mother to be told her future mattered less than someone else's celebration. I wanted my father to hear his own words. You have time to rebuild. I wanted Lauren to watch every luxury disappear while someone called her selfish for objecting. But retaliation would make me resemble them. I needed accountability, distance, and proof. Rachel helped me prepare a written notice disputing every guarantee, ownership claim, and credit application connected to Everlight. It demanded that my parents stop using my identity and preserve all documents, emails, texts, and applications involving my name. When I returned home, 2 empty boxes sat outside my bedroom. My mother stood in the hallway. I assumed you'd need those. I do, I replied and began packing. At 7, all 5 of us sat around the dinner table. My father folded his hands. Lauren kept her phone beside her plate, perhaps ready to record my humiliation. Ethan avoided everyone's eyes. My mother spoke first. Have you made the transfer? No. Her face hardened. Then leave by midnight. My father pushed the transfer form toward me again. This can still end peacefully. I asked. Was my name used to guarantee Everlight's line of credit? No one moved. Lauren frowned. What is she talking about? Denise recovered first. Another distraction from what you owe your family. It's a simple question. My father lowered his voice. Where did you hear that? Is the answer yes? He said they had included me in preliminary documents and called it an administrative detail. I told him they had listed me as an owner, reported my assets, and submitted a signature I didn't write. Lauren turned toward our parents. Did you forge her name? My mother accused me of poisoning the evening. I placed a copy of the signature page on the table. Ethan stared at it. Lauren noticed the recovery phone number. Mom, that's your number. Denise snatched the document away. You went through private records? The bank gave it to me. My father stood so quickly that his chair scraped the floor. You contacted the lender? The fear in his voice confirmed everything. I told them I had frozen my credit, disputed the account, and filed a police report. My father cursed. My mother accused me of trying to send them to prison. Lauren asked whether the venue would still be paid. Then my phone vibrated. Although Lauren sat only feet away, she had texted, You're a loser. No one will forgive you when my wedding is ruined. I looked at her. Thank you. For what? For putting that in writing. Her face lost its color. My mother slammed the table and ordered me out. As I carried my suitcase down the hallway, she listed everything she believed I owed her. Meals, clothes, transportation, school supplies, even childhood birthday parties. She transformed parenthood into an invoice. Ethan quietly carried one of my boxes to the car. Before leaving, I turned back and smiled. It wasn't triumph. It was the expression of someone who had finally found the exit. They interpreted it as arrogance. 3 days later, they would understand it as a warning. I spent Thursday night in the spare room of my coworker, Priya Shah. She set clean towels on the bed and said, You don't have to solve your whole life tonight. That sentence nearly broke me because no one in my family had ever separated my life from their emergencies. Friday morning began with 6 missed calls from my father. His first voicemail was angry. He accused me of overreacting and demanded the name of the bank employee I had contacted. In the next, he offered to sign a private promise that I would never be required to pay the debt. The offer revealed that he understood the guarantee was serious, but still believed a family promise could override a bank contract. My mother left messages saying Lauren had been awake all night and asking me to delay the investigation until after the wedding. She didn't apologize for using my identity. She only wanted more time. I saved every voicemail. At 10, Marissa called. The disputed guarantee had been important to the lending decision. Everlight had missed 2 payments and recently requested another draw, so the bank was restricting the account pending investigation. Existing obligations remained due, but no additional borrowing would be allowed. Later, Frontier Equipment Finance contacted me regarding the recent credit inquiry. Everlight had applied for approximately $68,000 in staging and lighting equipment using my identity as supporting guarantor. Because of the fraud alert, the application stopped before approval. My parents had tried to attach me to a second debt. This wasn't one desperate decision. It was a method repeated because the first forgery had worked. Rachel helped me add the second application to the fraud reports and prepared certified notices for the lenders and Everlight's business address. The notices stated that I had never owned Everlight, authorized credit, signed guarantees, or allowed anyone to use my identity. Ethan called me Friday evening from a parking lot near our house. He said my parents had searched my room, hoping to find my credit union information. Gregory called the accountant, while Lauren contacted the aircraft hangar venue and learned the final balance was due Monday. The florist and band also wanted payment. Why did they think $15,000 would cover everything? I asked. Ethan said it wasn't supposed to. My money was intended to cover the overdue loan payment, reopen the credit line, and allow another draw to pay wedding vendors. My parents had built a bridge from my future and expected me to thank them while Lauren crossed it. Ethan also overheard our parents blaming each other. Gregory said, "You told me she would never check." Denise replied, "You submitted the documents." He admitted he didn't know who physically copied my signature, but both appeared to know about it. Saturday morning, I signed a lease for a small studio near work. The kitchen was narrow, the windows faced a parking structure, and the building was older than I was. It was still the first home chosen without my mother's approval. I paid the deposit from checking, leaving my certification savings untouched. Red River Community Credit Union added security controls, removed paper statements, and verified that no external transfer instructions existed. My balance remained $15,312. Sunday, Rachel finalized the notice package. It contained copies of the fraud reports, the disputed signatures, the unauthorized applications, a demand to preserve evidence, and instructions that all future financial communication be in writing. I added a short personal letter. "You told me family requires sacrifice. What you meant was that my future could be sacrificed without my consent. That ends now. I will not pay for the wedding, cure company debt, withdraw truthful reports, or sign retroactive documents. Whatever happens next will result from decisions you made before I learn the truth." Priya drove with me to the house early Monday. I mailed one certified copy and left a duplicate at the front door. On the envelope, I wrote, "For Gregory and Denise Brooks, legal and financial notice, do not destroy." At 8:17 a.m., Lauren posted a photograph of herself trying on earrings with the caption, "Nothing can stop what is meant for you." At 9:04, my father opened the envelope. At 9:11, he called me. At 9:13, my mother called. At 9:16, Lauren sent 22 messages. At 9:23, Ethan wrote 4 words, "The house is exploding." Ethan later told me what happened. Denise assumed the envelope contained a check and apology. Lauren entered the kitchen in her robe, recording a wedding update for social media. She expected to announce that a family funding problem had been solved. Gregory opened the envelope and read the fraud notice. Police reference number, disputed guarantee, Frontier equipment application, false ownership statement, preservation demand, and my letter. He asked why Denise's phone number appeared on the application. She said he had known. He replied that she had called the documents placeholders. Lauren stopped recording. Denise accused Gregory of submitting the guarantee without reviewing it. Gregory said she had copied my identification, created the email, and prepared the figures. She shouted that he was company president and had signed the final certification. He shouted that she controlled the books and had hidden the missed payments. Then Lauren realized the wedding money didn't exist. She demanded to know whether Monday's vendors would be paid. Gregory said the credit line was frozen. Denise proposed using client deposits expected later that week. Ethan reminded them that those deposits belonged to upcoming events. Lauren suggested delaying smaller customers and using their money temporarily. Ethan finally challenged her. "You want 6 other couples to lose their weddings so yours can look expensive?" Lauren called him disloyal. At 9:30, Prairie National requested an immediate meeting with our parents and instructed them to preserve the original application records. At 10:05, Frontier Equipment confirmed the financing had been rejected. At 10:40, the aircraft hangar venue warned that the date would be released unless the balance arrived before the deadline. Caleb arrived before noon after his family heard rumors from vendors. Tulsa's event industry was larger than a small town, but smaller than my parents pretended. Caleb read the documents and asked Lauren whether she had known my parents intended to take my savings. She called it a family contribution. He asked whether I had volunteered. She admitted I hadn't. "Then it wasn't a contribution," he said. Lauren accused him of taking my side. He replied that refusing to support fraud wasn't choosing sides. She cried that canceling the wedding would ruin her reputation. He asked why reputation mattered more than identity theft. When she kept defending the spectacle, he removed his engagement ring from the chain he wore at work and placed it on the table. He postponed the wedding indefinitely and said marriage wouldn't be discussed until the investigation ended and Lauren accepted responsibility. Lauren turned on our mother. "You promised this was handled." Denise screamed, "I have handled everything for you your entire life. And now you ruined my wedding. I risked the house for your wedding." Lauren replied, "No one asked you to forge Hannah's name." That sentence silenced the room. Denise began crying and claimed the fraud was temporary. She said they expected Everlight to recover before I discovered anything. Gregory then admitted the company had been losing money for 14 months. Their glamorous social media concealed declining revenue, storage costs, equipment damage, refund claims, and unpaid vendors. Lauren's wedding was supposed to generate photographs, publicity, and wealthy referrals that might save the business. My identity had become collateral for a marketing gamble. By afternoon, the bank had ordered an inventory inspection, a supplier suspended Everlight's account, and 2 employees resigned because payroll was uncertain. My parents blamed me. My father said I should have come to them privately. I had. My mother said I didn't need to involve outsiders. They had involved a bank using my name. Lauren wrote, "You destroyed everything in 3 days." They had spent months creating the disaster. I had only stopped supporting it. That evening, Ethan arrived at Priya's apartment with 2 bags. Denise had fired him after he refused to sign a statement claiming I had verbally approved the guarantee. He had saved her messages, including one saying, "The bank just needs everyone consistent until the wedding is over." We sent them to Rachel and the investigating officer. Within days, the venue released Lauren's wedding date. The florist canceled. The band kept its deposit, and rental vendors reclaimed unpaid items. Caleb moved out and refused to discuss a new date. Everlight lost access to additional borrowing and couldn't meet its obligations. Much of its lighting, staging, delivery equipment, and flooring had been pledged as collateral. When my parents couldn't cure the default, the lender began repossession procedures. The house wasn't taken immediately, but a separate home equity loan placed it at risk. My mother demanded my $15,000 because she believed it could buy 1 more month. Instead, her demand caused me to inspect my credit 3 days before she planned to submit another fraudulent application. That timing changed everything. 6 weeks later, my parents requested a meeting through Rachel. I agreed only if it took place in her conference room, remained limited to financial corrections and boundaries, and included no pressure to withdraw truthful reports. Gregory arrived looking older. Everlight had suspended operations after losing essential equipment and failing to pay vendors. Several clients demanded refunds, and my parents had hired separate attorneys because their interests no longer matched. Denise entered without her usual confidence. Lauren came alone. Caleb still refused to set another wedding date. Ethan sat beside me. My mother said, "We want our family back." I asked, "Which family? The one where you used my identity, or the one where everyone pretended you hadn't?" Denise admitted she had made a terrible decision. I asked, "Only one?" Gregory finally confessed there were multiple documents. Denise created the email account and supplied copies of my identification. Gregory approved the false ownership information and submitted the guarantee. Both knew I hadn't signed it. The Frontier equipment application used the same information, but my fraud alert stopped it before approval. Hearing the confession brought no sudden peace. It only confirmed that they had known exactly what they were doing. I asked why they chose me. Denise answered, "Your credit was good. You had stable employment. Ethan's income was too low, and Lauren already had balances." The honesty was brutal. "You chose me because I was useful." Gregory said they believed the company would recover. Then he admitted something worse. "We thought you would forgive us if you ever discovered it." They hadn't assumed I would consent. They assumed my love would erase their consequences. Lauren said she hadn't known about the forgery before our dinner confrontation. I believed her, but she had still known our parents intended to force me to give up my savings. She apologized for calling me a loser and treating my money like an obligation. Then she asked whether we could rebuild our relationship. "Not today," I said. "I don't trust you." For once, nobody told me to protect her feelings. My conditions were simple. My parents had to cooperate with the lenders, correct every false credit record, reimburse my legal expenses, communicate in writing, stop describing my reports as an attack, and acknowledge that I had never owned Everlight or guaranteed its debt. Gregory agreed. Denise asked what would happen if she refused. Rachel answered that the evidence and investigations would continue without her cooperation. My mother signed. Consequences followed. Everlight's warehouse lease ended. Much of its collateralized equipment was surrendered or sold. My parents sold their newer vehicles and placed the house on the market before the home equity payments consumed what remained. They moved into a smaller rental outside the city. Lauren lost her job when Everlight closed. Several vendors refused to work with her after learning she had suggested using other clients' deposits for her wedding. She became an assistant at a hotel conference center, where she had to follow budgets created by someone else. Caleb agreed to counseling but said marriage wouldn't be discussed until she learned to separate commitment from spectacle. Whether they stay together is no longer my responsibility. Ethan found work with an audiovisual company and began taking evening electrical courses. We speak regularly, although trust is rebuilding slowly. I enrolled in the prosthetic CAD certification program. Watching my savings decrease for my own education felt different from watching it disappear into someone else's performance. 6 months later, I helped modify a prosthetic socket component to improve pressure distribution during testing. The change was less than 3 millimeters, but my supervisor recommended me for a development position. When I saw the component produced from a design I helped create, I thought about the forged documents. Both involved my name, but only one represented my real work. My mother still sends letters. Some contain apologies. Others contain explanations about business pressure, fear, wedding expectations, and family loyalty. I read them when I'm ready and don't answer everyone. My father has apologized without asking me to rescue him. That difference matters. Lauren once asked whether I felt guilty that her wedding collapsed. I told her, "Your wedding didn't collapse because I kept my savings. It collapsed because it depended on debt, deception, and taking something that wasn't yours. Days later, she wrote, "I think I finally understand." Maybe she does. Understanding isn't the same as restoration, but it's more than she offered before. Some people call what happened revenge. My mother demanded my money, threw me out, and watched her authority, business, and reputation collapse. My sister insulted me and lost the wedding she expected my future to finance. My father called me selfish and later discovered that I would no longer absorb the consequences of his choices. But I didn't sabotage their business, steal their clients, invent accusations, or expose them online. I froze my credit, reported forged signatures, preserved messages, and allowed lenders, contracts, employees, vendors, and relatives to respond to the truth. Their punishment wasn't something I created. It was the life they had built without my silence protecting it. That is the lesson I carried out of my childhood home. Family love without respect becomes entitlement. Sacrifice without consent becomes exploitation. Forgiveness demanded before accountability becomes permission to repeat the harm. Setting a boundary may feel cruel when the people around you have benefited from your lack of one. They may call you selfish, ungrateful, dramatic, or disloyal. Sometimes those words don't describe your behavior. They describe their panic at losing access to you. You are not required to destroy your education, savings, health, career, or peace to preserve a family image built on unequal treatment. Saying no doesn't mean you don't love your family. Sometimes saying no is the first honest act of love you offer yourself. 3 days after I left, my parents opened an envelope and believed it had destroyed their lives. The truth was harder. The envelope only showed them that I would no longer let them destroy mine. Would you have given them the $15,000 to keep the peace, or would you have walked away? When does helping family stop being generosity and become exploitation? Share your answer in the comments, because someone reading your story may need permission to protect their own future.
Thank you for joining us for another emotional story. This video is completely fictional and created only for entertainment, education, and storytelling purposes. We hope it reminds you that the people who truly belong in your life will not make you feel guilty for needing peace. They will understand that your emotional safety matters too.